Monsieur Cousin's course of the history of modern philosophy is here, for the first time entire, presented to the English reader. It consists of lectures delivered at Paris in the years 1828 and 29. The delivery of these lectures, says Sir William Hamilton, Edinburgh Review, October 1829, page 194. Speaking of the first volume, excited an unexampled sensation. In Paris, condemned to silence during the reign of Jesuit ascendancy, Monsieur Cousin, after 8 years of honorable retirement, had ascended again the chair of philosophy. And the splendor with which he recommenced his academical career more than justified the expectation which his recent reputation as a writer and the memory of his earlier lectures had inspired. 2,000 auditors listened in admiration to the eloquent exposition of doctrines unintelligible to the many, and the oral discussion of philosophy awakened in Paris and in France an interest unexampled since the days of Abelard. The daily journals found it necessary to gratify, by their earlier analysis, the impatient curiosity of the public, and the lectures themselves, taken in shorthand and corrected by the professor, propagated weekly the influence of his instruction to the remotest provinces of the kingdom. These remarks of the noble Edinburgh professor, which contain no exaggeration, might be extended with equal propriety to the other 2 volumes. It is not expected that at present a like interest for philosophy can be awakened on this side of the ocean, for the American mind is still flowing for the most part in utilitarian channels. Yet there are many earnest thinkers among us who are determined to fathom every system, who mean that the United States shall excel all other nations in sound speculation, in scholarship, in literature, as well as in political institutions, commerce, and the useful arts. To the young men of America, who are certainly not behind the young men of France in spirit and energy of thought, this translation is entrusted. A work of extraordinary merit and beauty can be appreciated here as well as in Europe. This second series of lectures contains a full exposition of Cousin's system. It is, in fact, his great philosophical work, and has received his last revision and correction. Whoever, either for the purpose of propagating it or resisting its influence, wishes to make himself acquainted with eclecticism, which is fast becoming the dominant philosophy of the 19th century, will do well to study this production of its founder and ablest teacher. The first volume contains a luminous summary of Cousin's views as regard to humanity and history. The course, which comprises the 2 last volumes of this series, will, to use the language of Mr. Morel, in all probability be ever the most popular of his writings. The connected account which it gives of the history of philosophy from the earliest times, the distinct classification it makes of systems, the brief yet intelligible glimpses it affords into the interior of almost every school, whether ancient or modern, together with the detailed analysis of Locke, in which is said almost all that ever need be said about the essay on the human understanding. In a word, the singular union of the more sober criticism of the psychological school, with occasional flights into the higher regions of metaphysical analysis, all concur to secure for the course of 1829 an interest and a value peculiarly its own. In order to understand the system of the greatest philosopher of France, it is at least necessary to study the whole of these 3 volumes. As a fine writer, Cousin has perhaps never been surpassed. Those who love elegance of composition will find in his works everything to gratify a refined taste. Of all nations in the world, the French are among the greatest masters of prose, and of all their prose writers, scarcely anyone can be said to excel Cousin in power of expression and perfect finish of style. It is hardly necessary to repeat here what has often been observed and what everyone who has made the attempt knows, that it is very difficult to translate accurately from so flexible a language as the French, into English. The constant aim of the translator has been to give no more, no less than the thought of Cousin. The style of the original, so far as the peculiarities of the two languages would permit, has been followed. How far successful these efforts may have been is left for those to say who are qualified to judge. The translator gladly embraces this opportunity of acknowledging his indebtedness to F.W. Record, librarian of the Library Association, Newark, New Jersey, as his fellow laborer in the work of translation. O.W. Wright. O.W. White. New York, September 8th, 1851. The friends of philosophy in this country will be glad to learn that a large edition of Monsieur Cousin's History of Philosophy has been exhausted in a few weeks, for thereby is indicated a growing interest in the subject among our people. A few verbal errors have been corrected in this edition that escaped us in the first. We have neglected no aids for improving our translation and rendering it as worthy as may be of public favor. As we said in the preface of the first edition, this is the first time that an entire series of Monsieur Cousin's philosophic works has been translated. We here add that hitherto no portion of a series has been translated from the edition that contains the author's last revision and correction, and to which he has added important notes. We would express our gratitude for the almost universal favor with which our labor has been received by the press, and again commend to the young men of America the greatest work of the greatest philosopher of France. O.W.W., New York, June 1st, 1852. Gentlemen, I cannot suppress my deep emotion in finding myself again in this chair, to which, in 1815, I was called, by the choice of my illustrious master and friend, Monsieur Royer Collard. The first strokes of a power which no longer exists drove me hence. I am happy and proud to reappear today, with the return of the constitutional hopes of France. Applause. And my gratitude and loyalty constrain me to thank publicly my country, the king, and the new administration. Applause. A separation of 8 years from the public has deprived me of my wonted ease in the presence of assemblages like this before me. Accustomed in my retirement to those forms of thought which, though well enough adapted to private study, are not proper for the instruction of others, I fear that for want of expressions suitable to a numerous audience, I shall bring to this chair the mere soliloquies of a hermit. It is indeed but recently that I was aware that I should have to appear before you. No preparation therefore accompanies and sustains me. Prudence counseled me to defer the commencement of these lectures and to labor to render them for the coming year less unworthy of your attention. These were, however, but selfish considerations which I have determined to abandon, that I may think only of the performance of duty. And I have regarded as a duty, as soon as permission was given me, to make use of it to renew the interrupted course of the lectures of the normal school, to reappear upon the theatre of my first labors, and there to rally those who still hold me in remembrance, and to come here, too, at the expense of my vanity and personal feelings, to serve the cause of philosophy. Instead of consulting my strength, I trust to my well-known intentions and to your former indulgence. I bring back to you the same professor, the same instruction, the same principles, the same zeal. May I find in you the same confidence. In casting my eyes around me, I must in justice to myself say that in the midst of the agitations of our times, that amidst the various turns of political events to which I have been subjected, my wishes have never passed beyond these walls. Devoted entirely to philosophy, after having had the honor to suffer a little in its service, I come to consecrate it unreservedly, all that remains to me of strength and of life. I come to consecrate to it unreservedly all that remains to me of strength and of life. I propose the ensuing year to introduce you into Greece and to make you acquainted with that admirable philosophy to which Plato gave his name, and which at once recalls all that is most profound in thought and most pleasing in imagination. But can any system of philosophy whatever be understood if considered by itself alone? Does one understand it when ignorant of the consequences which must inevitably follow? Consequences unknown indeed to its very author. Can we be said to be acquainted with that of which we do not even know the origin? Plato, for example, cannot be understood without his successors, the Neoplatonists, and as little can he be understood without his predecessors, Socrates and Anaxagoras. If then I wish to make you comprehend somewhat profoundly the Platonic philosophy, it is necessary that I should show you its relation with the general epoch of the history of philosophy to which it belongs. Now, that which is true of a system is equally true of the different epochs of the history of philosophy. In order to understand one of them, it is necessary to become acquainted with almost all. I deem it then indispensable to present to you, during the short time that remains to us before our next vacation, a general review of the different epochs of the history of philosophy as an introduction to the complete exposition of the Platonic philosophy, with its antecedents and consequence. I shall doubtless glance but lightly over all, but nothing, I hope, will remain unnoticed. It will be necessary at first to sketch the framework, leaving the picture to be completed at a later period. By this plan, I shall moreover be able to unfold more advantageously my own opinions. All the problems which human thought can suggest, having been successfully taken up by different ages and different schools, will thus be brought to this chair. From the heights of science and history, then, the public who have now forgotten me, and who wish in the first place to know where I intend to conduct them, will see more clearly my aim, my designs, and thus to speak, that star of philosophy which must serve as a light and a guide in the great career which we must run together. Then, for the next year, we will consider Plato and Greece. For this year, humanity in its integrity and the general history of philosophy. But do you perceive that I am reasoning upon a hypothesis which many perhaps will not admit? Is philosophy the legitimate daughter of human reason? Or is it only a series of chimeras originating in the dreams of men of genius, and propagated and maintained by the authority of their example? Does it belong to Plato and Aristotle alone, or is it the property of the human intellect? Is it only a caprice, an extravagance of thought, or does it really possess a foundation in that nature which is common to us all, and consequently has it a rank in the catalogue of that human sciences, making its history a serious thing? This is a point that must be settled before all others, and an examination of this preliminary question will make the special subject of this lecture. Let us decide in the first place what it is that has brought us here together. Is it upon your part a vain curiosity? Is it upon mine a simple force of habit? Or are we here uniting our efforts, not for the purpose of tormenting ourselves more or less ingeniously with idle fancies, but in order to satisfy a want more elevated, but as real as any other, a want inherent in the constitution of humanity? As soon as man has a consciousness of his being, he finds himself in a world strange and hostile, whose laws and phenomena seem in direct opposition to his own. own existence. For the purpose of self-defense, he is endowed with intelligence and liberty. He defends himself, he lives, he breathes. Though it be but 2 minutes in succession, only on condition of foreseeing. That is, on condition of having known these laws and these phenomena which would destroy his frail existence. If he learned not little by little to observe them, to measure their influence, and to calculate upon their recurrence. By his intelligence, he obtains knowledge of this world. By means of his liberty, he modifies it, he changes it, he adapts it to his use. He arrests the spreading deserts, turns aside the rivers, and levels the mountains. In a word, he accomplishes in a succession of ages that series of prodigies which now so little astonishes us, because we are habituated to our power and to its effects. He who first measured the space which surrounded him, counted the objects which presented themselves to him and observed their properties and their action. He it was who gave birth to the mathematical and physical sciences. He who modified in the least degree that which was an obstacle in his path. He it was who created industry, multiplied ages, cultivated this feeble plant by the accumulated labors of generations, and you will have all that you have today. The mathematical and physical sciences are a conquest of human intelligence over the secrets of nature. Industry is a conquest of liberty over the forces of this same nature. The world, such as man founded, was a stranger to him. The world, such as the mathematical and physical sciences, together with industry, have made it, is a world resembling man, reconstructed by him in his own image. In fact, look around you, and you will perceive everywhere the impression of intelligence and human liberty. Look around you. Look around you. In fact, look around you, and you will perceive everywhere the impression of intelligence and human liberty. Nature had only made things, that is, beings without value. Man, in giving to them the form of his own personality, has elevated them into image of liberté, images of liberty and intelligence and intelligence, and in this way communicated to them a part of the value which belongs to himself. The primitive world is nothing more than material for the labor of man, and it is labor that has given to this matter the value which it possesses. The destiny of man, I mean in his relations with the world, is to assimilate nature as much as possible to himself, to plant in it, and to make, and in it, to plant in it, and to make, is to assimilate nature as much as possible to himself, to plant in it, and in it to make appear unceasingly the liberty and intelligence with which he is endowed.